Today I'm joined by Kash Kelly, a fellow January 6th defendant. He was hunted down after the events of January 6th on misdemeanor charges, and I spent a good deal of time with him inside the DC jail. I want to address a lot of the issues that he had to face as a defendant. Before we get into the legalities, I actually want to get into who Cash Kelly the man is. And before January 6th, he had a life and he had a cause. And I'd like to begin by asking Cash Kelly, who is Cash Kelly? Who was Cash Kelly before January 6th? And what would you like the world to know about you as a man?
Well, I appreciate that, Tom. Good talking with you, bro. Always good talking with you. Who was Kash Kelly? I think that's a deep question, man. I'm still kind of like a mystery to myself, but I would say today, more than ever, I'm a dedicated father. You know, more than anything else, that's my main thing that I enjoy being and I take pride in being. I'm also the founder of the Street Lights Unity Movement, which is a 501c3 geared towards keeping kids away from gangs and up out the streets and away from drugs and just, giving back to the community overall. That's something that's a deep passion of mine because of where I grew up and how I grew up. And before January 6th, who I was kind of the same, except, I had a deeper stance on, law and order, right? I was all about law and order because I had changed my whole life up. And like I said, I was a father and I lived in the hood, so I seen crazy things happen. So when people got locked up, I was just like, yeah, okay, well, they shouldn't have broke the law. You know what I'm saying? And I was a little harsher than I am today on people that find themselves in that kind of situation. And looking at that today, I changed my stance a lot on it because I seen what people had to go through, us included, had to go through being incarcerated in the way that the legal system works and just seeing firsthand how everything goes inside of there and how people get treated and the biases from officers or the biases from a judge or from a lawyer. So now I've added on to my resume, a person that is an activist towards prison reform and accountability throughout the BOP or any institution where they house inmates because I've seen abuses happen.
Well, I can't wait to talk about really the excesses of the justice system, what you've witnessed. But before we get to the system itself, there was a path that unfortunately brought you to that system. I'd like to first ask, what was your motivation for going to Washington, D.C. on January 6th? What brought you there that day?
Well, it was a couple things for me. I live streamed actually in 2020. I live streamed about it before I ever went to the Capitol when I was thinking about going to the Capitol. It was a couple things that led up to that point of my frustration. The election, obviously, number one, because, we were all believing that the election was stolen, which now has came out that there was fraud. There was a lot of stuff that shouldn't have happened in an election, happened in the election. But even more than that, I saw the nation go on lockdown. My friends lost their businesses. Some people lost homes because of the lockdowns, right? And we were all told we couldn't go to our job. We couldn't go to church. We couldn't go outside. We had to wear masks, social distance, 6 feet. The lines inside the grocery store were crazy because you had to be 6 feet apart from people and arrows going down. It was just a lot, right? And then you turn on the news and you see the country being torn apart and burned down in certain places because of rioters upset about, George Floyd or what happened with BLM, and Antifa and all of that. So that all was like the perfect mixture for me to be upset. I'm like, this isn't fair. And then them not being held accountable for it. They were told, like, police in certain areas are told, let them be, don't even go within 6 blocks of where they're at, right? We saw what happened with Chaz, the Chop, whatever they was calling it. And they got left alone. They said, let them have it. They basically occupied they made their own little city, if you want to be technical about it. So all of them things really just irritated me, and I'm reporting on all these things at the time. Because like I said, I was a live streaming social media influencer, and I was live streaming with people that were there on the ground. So I'm watching firsthand what's going on out there. and it blew my mind, bro. It blew my mind. So yeah, when I went to the Capitol, it was really just a peacefully protest. I didn't have any plans of violence. I told people that I wanted to do a sit-in. I said that before I went there. I got it recorded on my YouTube. I said when I get to DC in the Capitol, I want to do a sit-in. Anybody that wants to join me, you're more than welcome to it. We're not going to be violent. We're going to peacefully protest. We're going to show them that we not like Antifa. You know what I'm saying? We're going to go in there. We're going to sit down and lock arms, and that's it. That was my plan, and obviously it didn't go that way.
Well, thank you for fleshing that out, because not only is the DOJ's framing of events that we were all there for some sort of insurrection, they also present things as if everybody was part of a monolith. But as you just said, there were people there to live stream. There were people there were people who were there for President Trump's speech, but then there were also people who were there to protest COVID lockdowns. There were people there, from what I've been able to ascertain, there were people there for a myriad of reasons. We weren't a monolith. We were there as Americans, really to exercise our rights as Americans, which is pretty much whatever we want, really. If you could, you got into it a little bit, but could you take us through the day of January 6th from start to finish? You're in Washington, D.C., and what happens, really?
All right, well, I got there on the 5th. I was staying at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, and on the 5th, everybody was just hanging out, just a good time. We were just hanging in the lobby. We were having a couple drinks, talking about things, and it was really just community. It felt good. It felt like being around your people, and I was just enjoying my day. So the next day, we planned on leaving at 6 a.m. Obviously didn't get to happen like that. I woke up, had a slight hangover. So I didn't go at 6 a.m. I started walking that way probably around, I'll say 8 or 9, to get a good position over there by, the ellipse. And when I got there again, it was just community. It was just a great feeling, even walking there. You see all these different people, all the people that I knew, people that were followers of mine on my page and wanted to stop and talk to me. We took pictures, and it was great. It was really good. So we get there, and we're listening to Trump give his speech, and it was great. Everything was good. And then we headed towards the Capitol. I left before Trump ever even said, we're going to peacefully and patriotically make our voices heard, go right in the sketch. I left before all of that. I went there. I was like, I want to be one of the first people that show up. So when I start walking there, I run into people along the way. I run into Bryson. Obviously, Bryson Gray, my guy. He's a good dude. I ran into, who else? MAGA Hawk. That's my guy. Talk with him. Ran into just a multitude of people. The rapper, what's his name, bro, with the rainbow jacket or the Skittles jacket or whatever. Fergiato. I ran into him. I ran into just a whole bunch of people, man, and just chopped it up with people. I've met all these people before, so it was just like I say, like, it's a great day of community. So when I get all the way to the Capitol, I'm on the west side, and all these Americans are standing right there just singing God Bless America, chanting USA. It was good. And then police come out in riot gear. And when they came out in riot gear, I'm like, what in the world? This is where I reported it. And that's the one that I sent to Julie Kelly from prison. They start throwing flashbangs or whatever they were that they were throwing into the crowd. I got hit with a projectile. I seen them start shooting people with pepper balls, and macing people. And nobody wasn't doing anything. People were just standing there literally singing. So I'm confused. So I start yelling at them. I say, what the hell are y'all doing this for? We supported y'all 2020. You know what I'm saying? Why y'all doing? We're protesting. They ain't hearing nothing because the crowd's so loud. And they just keep on doing what they do. So then the crowd started throwing stuff back, at the police. So that's when I'm like, okay, I look over to the ladies, and I'm like, look, let's get the ladies out of here. So we leave. We walk off, and I see Will Johnson over there live streaming. I said, what's up to him? I talked to a couple people, and the next thing I know, I see the police stand to the side. And when the police stood to the side, people just walked up the stairs to go inside the Capitol. So I go. I climb up the little scaffolding because I'm trying to cut the line, and I climbed up the railing on the side of the stairs. It's like a sidewalk, really. It's pretty big, but it's not. It's not meant to be walked on. Everybody just gonna throw that out there. I was just cutting the line. So yeah, I went up there. there's a guy standing there, and he's like, "Get in there, soldier!" And I'm like, "What?" And he gave me this flag. So I'm going with it. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a soldier." So I keep on going, and there's police standing over there. I look over to the police. I say, "I'm good." Police looked and said, "Don't break anything, don't steal nothing." And I said, "All right," and I walked in. I walked in through the door with everybody else, and I'm recording. So as I'm walking in, I'm recording it all, and I'm like, "Yo, this is crazy. This is beautiful. I can't believe I'm in the Capitol right now," and all of that. So after that, I make it to the statutory hall, I guess, or some sort of rotunda right there, and I get on the statue and took that infamous picture with the statue standing on the pedestal with it. And I made a Facebook post, which, looking back, it was probably not the best decision that I made, right? But still an epic photo, and the post was amazing. I'm sorry, I still stand by the post. It was great.
I think many of us had very worthwhile selfies inside. I believe that was the crypt area with the statues. Yes,
it was pretty cool. But then I jumped down because I see these people arguing with the police, and they start crowding around them. So when I get down, I'm like, "Yo, what's going on, man?" I say, we not Antifa, bro. These police officers wasn't out there doing things that the other police officers was doing, And they're like, "Yo, you're Kash Kelly," and I'm like, "Yeah." So they were like, "Can we take a picture?" I'm like, "Yeah." I took a picture, and the police was like, "Yo, you guys could go that way. You can't come this way." And it was like, all right. So they went the other way. Police officer said, "Yo, thanks, man." I said, "No problem, bro. Appreciate y'all." And then I look behind me, and I see somebody swinging at a chandelier, and then another dude lighting up a joint or a blunt or something. And I'm like, okay, time for me to go. I started yelling. I said, "What are y'all doing, bro? We don't destroy our own house." And I'm screaming at them. But they not listening. So I'm like, okay, this is time for me to get up out of here now. I'm not going to be a part of this. So I turn around and leave. When I'm leaving, go back the same way that I came, the SWAT, they stop people from coming in at this point. The doors are barricaded. SWAT, I'm maybe in there for 20 minutes, bro, not even. And SWAT's coming in. And I'm like, oh, snap. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, "Yo, I just want to get out of here, bro. I just want to leave." They said, "You can't go through this door. You can climb through this window." The police said that. I said, "This window is broken." They were like, "Yeah." I said, "All right." So right next to the police, you can look the video up. I climb back through the window to leave. So when I leave, I'm telling the people outside, like, "Yo, y'all don't want to go in there, man. It's going crazy in there. There's people trying to break stuff, and the SWAT's in there, and they got everything ready to go. Like, they ready for business." And they're like, "For real?" I'm like, "Yeah." They said, "People are breaking stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, no, we don't do that." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly. That's what I said." And I left. Some people left with me. Some people stayed and was like, "No, we going in." And then I'm going down and I'm showing people the videos that I took inside the Capitol, saying how beautiful it was. And yeah, and then that was that. I keep walking, and I see all hell starting to break loose, and I just got out of there, man. I went back to the hotel.
I want to add for clarification too. You had mentioned videos, especially the one where the police were launching ordnance into the crowd. I recall being with you inside the DC jail later on. These were very important videos, especially early on when few people were willing to report on what had actually escalated the protest into a riot. I believe, as you said, Julie Kelly started sharing that video around. That was very important. And so I would like those who listen to know that.
Yeah, shout out to Julie Kelly, man. I remember I was talking to all of you guys, actually, and Ryan Nichols was telling me that he showed me in his report from the FBI, the FBI was saying that no projectiles or flashbangs was used in the crowd. And nobody was willing to come forward with the videos from that day because everybody was so scared about being arrested. And I figured, I'm like, you know what? This is going to help the brothers out because a lot of you guys had that in your report when they were saying that the police was agitating by doing things like that. And nobody had video footage of it that was willing to come forward with it at the time. So I'm like, I'm already locked up and I want to help out my bros. So screw it. I'm going to go ahead and send the video. And was it you that got the contact for Julie Kelly? I forget who gave me the contact for Julie for me to send the video, but we got the video to her and she aired it out. And then that's when things started to change inside DC DOC for us.
Absolutely. That was definitely maybe not the final nail in the coffin, but certainly maybe we could say it was one of the first. It was definitely, It was definitely,
y'all had a part of the nail in the coffin. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Very instrumental. And, I want to I want to continue down this path. So, you know, the day was very complex, somewhat chaotic, but the day comes and it goes. After January 6th, obviously you get picked up. But what was your experience after that day? How much time passed between the day of January 6th and your arrest? How did you get found? What was the buildup from that point?
All right, so it's crazy, really, because I made it back home on the 5th. No, I'm sorry, on the 7th, 6th, either the 6th at night or the 7th in the morning, one or the other. I made it back home, and mind you, at this time, bro, I'm a viral social media influencer. Like, all my videos go viral every time I drop something. And they deleted my Facebook, they deleted my Instagram, and there were reports that came out because they had me speaking all over the place. I was speaking all over the country, and one in particular in Indiana, because that's where I'm from, right? I'm from Indiana, and I spoke at different events here in Indiana. I help people get elected in Indiana with my platform, or help campaign for them. Even had them on my platform when they had me come speak. So to come home and see the reports of like senators and news agencies and these people that invited me out, they were like, "Oh, we didn't know anything about his criminal history," and other, because they painted me out as this violent gangbanger. And it said, I think the report is still up, one of them, but it says, "Violent Latin King storms nation's capital." Now, for people that don't know, I used to be a Latin King. I grew up in a neighborhood where it was all Latin Kings, and I thought I was a Latin King from birth. I was throwing up gang signs since I've been old enough to walk, and I've changed my life, though. That's the crazy part. They knew my story. I changed my life up, got out of the gangs at the age of 21, 22 years old, completely done with everything at the age of 23, and started my activism, giving back to the community. And they knew this. I said this on the stage where the senator and governor, all these people were there. I said these things, and they applauded me for it. But then they made public statements saying that they didn't know anything about my criminal history, and they would have never had me come and speak, and it's a shame what he did, and all this kind of stuff, man. So then on the 10th, I get a phone call saying I got to go and turn myself in right now from my PO, because I was on pre-trial release at the time. I had a conspiracy case that I was fighting for the past 4 years from things, again, that they said that I did when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, which I had no part in. I know y'all hear that all the time. It's this thing, every black guy be like, "Oh, man, I didn't do it." But I really didn't. And now, the crazy part, the people that are out from that case, they'll say, like, "Yo, this dude didn't have anything to do with it, except for they found me taking pictures, or they were taking pictures of me while I'm talking to the youth that were in the gangs, trying to get them out." So I got locked up for pictures, being involved with these people. That's the bad thing about a conspiracy. If two or more people say that you did something, then you did it. So people threw my name in the mix, and I caught the indictment, which wasn't a big deal for me, brother, because of what I was understanding was I was probably going to get house arrest. If I would have fought it, I would have won. But ain't no way to fight it. Ain't got no money like that to be able to pay for hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lawyer. So I didn't. I just took it and fought it for 4 years. And I was going to get house arrest, but because January 6th happened, they said, "No, you got to come turn yourself in. You got a criminal complaint from D.C." And I was like, "Okay, well, I can't turn myself in right now. I'll turn myself in tomorrow because I got kids there with me. I got a lot of kids, and all of them at the time were living with me." So I said, "Let me get that sorted out, and I'll turn myself in." So I go turn myself in the next day, say goodbye to my family, and that was it, man. They put me in Porter County. I stood there for about a month until I had sentencing for the conspiracy. Now, when I got to sentencing, the judge talked about January 6th, which had nothing to do with what I was there for, okay? And he said he can't operate in a vacuum. The prosecutor that was prosecuting me spoke highly of me, bro. Spoke higher than my own lawyer. My own lawyer didn't even speak as highly of me. And the prosecutor said, "Man, this is very unfortunate that, this day would go completely different had he not been at January 6th, meaning I would have just gotten my house arrest or probation or whatever and been fine. But because I was at January 6th, he sentenced me to 48 months. So I got 48 months for the conspiracy. I'm thinking I'm going to the feds and have to deal with that later on with the criminal complaint with DC. Once I leave from there, they tell me you're going to DC. They ship me off to Cimarron in Oklahoma, and then from there I found out I was going to DC DOC. And I'm like, what am I going to DC DOC for? It's a criminal complaint for a misdemeanor charge. It didn't make any sense. And I'm convicted. At this time, I'm convicted. So how are you sending me to a jail after I'm convicted? I'm a federal inmate. I got a BOP number. So they did. They sent me to DC DOC where I met all of y'all. You know, in March I made it there. March 8th, I made it there. And that's when, you know, I'm like, dang, it's really in it, you know, because I was free inside the jails that I was at. We had movement, we can move around, but from there we go to DC DOC and we're all on solitary confinement. And that's when reality kicked in. I'm like, yo, this is real. This is happening. And I felt the pressures of political persecution.
Well, thanks for taking us through that your path from your home state to DC. Many of us refer to it as diesel therapy, where the marshals sort of bounce defendants around the country before arriving at their destination. And it's interesting you had mentioned Cimarron. I believe that's also where Michael Curgio ended up, which is I believe it's a medium security prison. It's actually only about an hour and a half away from Grady County Jail, which is not exactly a resort, but it is interesting that they chose to house some defendants in a fairly dangerous prison rather than in a county jail, which is contracted with the marshals.
Yo, you ain't telling me nothing. I got into it inside of there, bro. It's like it's gangland inside there, you know. And I'm not a gangbanger no more. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm not. I said it in my heart, like I'm not turning back into what I used to be. I'm just not gonna do it. I don't care what's gonna come with it. I'm not doing it. So I didn't click up with nobody as far as like a gang went. In Cimarron, it was more race anyway. They, you know, it was like blacks lived with blacks, whites with whites, and natives with natives, and Mexicans with Mexicans. And it was like that. So that's when I experienced that. I almost got into it with somebody. I had to hold, you know, honestly, I had to hold a knife. The other dude had a knife, and it was a black meeting. This dude was a thief. I called him out for his thievery of a young brother he took advantage of because I just don't like that. Like, you don't do that. So I spoke up on it while the kid didn't speak up for himself. So it got me in this altercation with this dude that's got a life sentence, which I mean, it is what it is. He was a frail dude. You know, he was a tall, like lanky kind of guy, but he didn't want it. You know, he didn't want to go there with me. And the first time ever, I had to wrap my whole arm up. You know how it goes. You've been through the system now, but you had to wrap your arm up. I wrapped it up. I patted myself, and you know, I had the knife. You know, and I had it tucked. And that was the first instance where I knew things was real. I'm like, yo, this is real. Like I'm really in a prison setting. And I told myself, I'm not reverting back. And I was praying to God that it didn't have to go left with this dude, and it didn't. He backed down because I put on the show. You know, I put on the face like it's go time. I'm ready for it. Really didn't want it to happen. My heart was beating through my chest. And, so I didn't know what to expect going to D.C. because the guy that I was with inside there, Bilal, he was telling me, oh, bro, he was from New York. You better get your blicky ready, bro. You going to the Heartbreak Hotel, son. I'm like, oh, man, okay. So there's going to be more of this, you know?
When you arrived in D.C., a lot of people go through. Well, I know in my experience, I received a false positive. This was at the height of COVID. You know, we both arrived in early 2021. I received a false positive for COVID and was forced to quarantine before actually arriving in C2B, which is the pod where most of us would be housed for several years. When you first arrived, what was it like when you first arrived in the DC jail? How did you make your way to C2B itself? Were you in C2A first? Were you in general pop?
No, I went to C2A first. We rode in with the brothers from DC. Like that's how I learned about the facility and how to, you know, I did a little investigating, talking to them on the ride there. It was me, Kelly Meggs, and Ronald Sandlin. And then what was that guy's name, bro? That it turned out to be a chomo that was pretending to be a J6er.
I believe there were a couple of those actually.
The one dude, the young white guy, or not young, but the white dude. I can't remember his name.
Was
Good time.
there were a couple of those? Unfortunately, I arrived with one named Michael Lanham. He was from New York. I think you might be talking about the one who was he on the second tier. He had glasses.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't recall his name, but I remember him distinctive. I remember him because he always reminded me. He reminded me of the alchemist from Full Metal Alchemist who turned his daughter into a chimera dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
No,
that's
man, but yeah, I was with him. I was with him on the ride there. It was me, Kim, and three brothers that was from DC DOC, and Kelly Meggs and Ronnie Sandler. So when we were all riding in together, I investigated with these guys. I asked what was the facility like what's the politics like in there. I'm just getting a feel for it, so I know how to carry myself when I get there. Thinking it's going to be like how it was at Cimarron, because Cimarron was wide open, gangland. It went down like it was crazy. So after I got that and I got there, I'm thinking that I'm going with these dudes, but they sent them to Southeast and they told us, me, Ronnie Sandlin, the Chomo dude, I can't remember his name, and Kelly, they said, y'all are going to C2A. You're going to the treatment facility. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So we went, and I'm thinking it's going to be all right because I guess they're putting J6s together is what I was understanding. So I'm a little nervous too because I was watching the news in other places and there's like, oh, all the J6s is white supremacists. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of bought into it just a little bit. And I'm like, oh man, I heard about the Oath Keepers and all this. And Kelly kind of put my little fears that I had to rest when I got in the van with him because he told me, he looked back at me, he goes, you Cash Kelly? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you're a J6er? I said, yeah. He goes, me too. Kelly Meggs, Oath Keeper. What's going on, man? That's exactly how he introduced himself. And I was like, oh, cool, man. What's going on, bro? He goes, nothing, bro. He's like, we're going to get through this. We're going to be fine. I said, yeah, bro, we're going to be all right. And we chopped it up. So I'm like, okay, that eased my mind just a bit. I'm like, they said this dude's a white supremacist. He's not, obviously. And, yeah, when we get there into C2A, they put us in there, and that was it. And it was late, so I didn't think nothing of it. But the next day when they didn't let us out, and they were only letting out 4 people for a shower and to heat something up if they had anything, which nobody had anything, and to use the phone. Oh, bro, I was like, what? They said, yeah, we're on lockdown, 23 and 1. I'm like, what? It blew my mind. So, yeah, I just made the best of it like the rest of it, just talking through the door to people and saying what's up. First, I'm listening and trying to get a feel for everybody. And, yeah, it was crazy, bro.
I arrived in DC in early February, technically February 3rd, but as I said, I was forced to quarantine for about a week. But when I arrived I went directly from there in Gen Pop to C2B. And then gradually, some of the guys in C2A would sort of filter into C2B, like only a handful at a time. How long were you in C2A before making it to C2B?
Like 2 weeks. Just for the quarantine process, which I'm thinking, okay, we're quarantining in this unit. Maybe that's why, No. When we got to C2A, it was the same, or C2B, it was the same thing. 23 and 1. So I'm like, what's the point of this? Why didn't they just bring us straight over there then?
Well, it's a very good question because for those that aren't familiar, we were essentially on COVID lockdown, or we were forced to go through COVID policies long after Washington, D.C. itself had ceased to enforce COVID lockdowns or restrictions.
Yep.
So that's a good, I think that's a good point to delve into. You had mentioned that we were in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day initially.
It was more than that, though.
Well, yes, especially considering the amount of people they would bring out at a time, and then they started segregating it by tier. So actually,
Yeah.
if you, depending on the time you actually got out for your recreation, you could have actually spent well over 24 hours inside of your cell.
Oh, yeah. There were times we were in there for about 30 hours, 34 hours.
What are the conditions in general, though, of C2B that you think the American public should know about? Do you feel that your civil rights were violated with the conditions and the restrictions imposed, whether they were officially imposed or not?
Well, I mean, regardless of how I feel, according to the law, what they did was cruel and inhumane punishment. Period. And that came by way of Obama. Obama put that into law. You cannot have an inmate, no matter what their crime is or how bad they are, you cannot leave an inmate in their cell for more than 22 hours at a time. That is, if you do, it is considered cruel and inhumane punishment. People have won lawsuits about this. And they left us in there far longer than that. So that right there, that is a violation of not just our civil rights, but human rights. You know what I'm saying? And then people not being afforded time to talk to their family, not sending mail out or not giving us the mail, the food. It was just a lot, bro. It was a lot. It was a lot of things. The conditions that we slept in, like some people had doo-doo all over their top of their bunk. There was black mold inside the cells. That's a real thing. That happened. It was inside the showers. It was bad. It was just all the way bad. The walls were sweating, so you wake up wet. You know, it was just a lot of things that I can't believe people got to live like that. And I ended up having to be one that had to live like that.
Yes, to quote Jeff McKellop, shit, piss, jizz, and man spray, I believe, is a good way to summarize the conditions of the DC jail. You know, you'd mentioned several different things, but you know, in terms of religious expression, in terms of medical treatment,
that was none of that. You weren't afforded to go to any religious services. You weren't afforded a haircut. You couldn't shave. You weren't allowed to go anywhere. Even if you had to go to medical for any reason, they were shackling you. You were shackled, walking to go to get medical attention. You know what I'm saying? It's insane, bro. It was just like, honestly, honest to God, bro, it's gonna sound crazy, but I felt like a slave. That's how I envisioned it. Like, yo, this is what a slave felt like back in the day. This is slavery. This is how they used to do people. And what made it even worse is hearing the abuses that came by way of the officers to you guys. Because at first they tried to like me. They tried to like me at first. It's like, oh, he's black. You remember Hayes coming and saying things like, oh yeah, that cracker's a white supremacist, man. You say he's a proud boy. If you want to get him, you know, I got you. Saying things like that, trying to stick me on what's his name, Dan Caldwell. Tried to stick me on Dan Caldwell when he got there, not knowing that me and Dan Caldwell built a great friendship through the wall. You know, and I knew about Dan Caldwell. He didn't know that I hung out with Proud Boys before I got locked up. So he's telling me things, and in my mind, I'm like, this dude don't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? But I played the role, didn't say nothing about it. I told Dan what was going on. I'm like, yo, this dude's trying to get me to get on you. You know, he goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. But yeah, little things like that. And you're hearing them calling y'all crackers and honkies and devils, and when they used to do stuff like that, bring the final call in, you know, and we're calling y'all the devil on there and just leave it sitting there for y'all to see. And just little things, man. I've seen it all. I've seen all these little abuses, and then it turned on me when I spoke up. When I started speaking up for you guys, that's when they switched up on me. Some of them, not all of them. We had a couple of really good officers there that I really appreciate, and I'm grateful to God that they were there. But for the majority, there was a lot of officers that really had a lot of vitriol, you know, towards all of you guys. They just did not like you.
Well, you know, I think it's important to address that really with all this, you know, civil rights abuses in the justice system are bad enough as it is, but we in particular, despite the fact that you had been sentenced on your prior case, you were still technically a pretrial detainee for the January 6th stuff, and that was true for the rest of us. And so, despite being denied bail or housed in a jail, we were actually still owed the same civil rights as anyone who was outside of a jail. And you know, you had talked about treatment, or I guess vitriol from the guards, but could you expand upon that a little? Could you tell people about the treatment from the guards? And I'm especially interested in your perspective because, you know, you made it onto the detail team. You became a custodian. You were out a little more, and so I feel as though you might have a different perspective on this because you got to see and hear more.
Yeah, so the COs, for instance, you remember when they would come and take us and move us to a whole nother unit for whatever reason that they were doing what they were doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so like if people were protesting their moves, they went to the cell to grab Padilla out, and they called Padilla, a pussy ass cracker. You know what I'm saying? For no reason. They just told him get in line, pussy ass cracker, and then saying things like that. And then the way that the COs would run up in people's cells and run up on people and make threats, telling them, I'll show y'all the real Black Lives Matter. I'll take you over there and on the other side of the jail, throw you in there with them, and they'll stab your ass up and they'll kill you. All them things, excuse my language, you know what I'm saying? But that's what they were saying. Basically threatening to have people killed that they just didn't like. And then gossiping while we were out, like talking to us, trying to get a feel for the other inmates and asking questions like, did you know that this person is a white supremacist? He's a part of a white supremacist group. When Billy Cressman, telling us Billy Cressman, he's a white supremacist, man. Yeah, he's one of them Proud Boys. And talk about Kenny and Kelly. Oh yeah, them are the Oath Keepers right there. They were plotting on killing it. They were saying all types of stuff, So it was just, I don't know, bro. It was something. And I'm over there trying to explain to them, like, yo, that's when I started getting cooler with some of the COs. And I'm like, nah, bro, that's not, the news is lying to you. The news ain't telling you the facts. I was out there and I had them look up my videos while I was there. They were looking at my videos while we were out on detail and watching my videos. And I'm like, look at the video from this time, man. And I introduced some of the Proud Boys. Some of them are as dark as me. And it started to light them up. They go, bro, the news is saying, like, Abdullah, he was one of the ones. He was like, I can't believe this, man. Because the news is saying, woo wah bam. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not the actual facts. Do you think that I would hang with a white supremacist, bro? You know where I come from. You see me on my streams. Do you think that I would hang with a white supremacist? He's like, no. The same thing with Miss Hubbard. Show Miss Hubbard some of the stuff. And Miss Hubbard, she was quicker to take a liking to most of the guys in there. You know what I'm saying? She was spared. You know what I mean? But then you had people like, what's that African officer's name? I can't remember.
Swami.
He told me when I told him, no, not Swami. It was another one that came in. And I told him, I called him brother. He goes, you did not call me brother. I'm not your brother. You're a nigga. I'm like, whoa. Oh. What? And then I was just at it every time he came in. I would get on BS with him.
That's something. I want to get into this a little too because there's always the saying, never attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity, and so for a lot of us who were in there, we had heard actually directly from guards that they knew we would be there and that they cleared the jail out several weeks out before January 6th, expecting us.
Yeah.
And so there's this question up in the air: to what extent did the jail itself mistreat us by directive versus out of prejudice? And so I try to be as fair as I can, even to the people I don't like. And when it comes to the guards, I recognize that a lot of these people were locals, and so they might have taken January 6th pretty personally. And they, of course, with the bias that comes from the area, they might have just believed in the propaganda. But what percentage of the treatment do you believe was personal malice versus directed from above? Because I do recall there were wardens and upper brass who did direct some hate towards us.
Percentage? Personal versus directive. I would say, at first, I would say 50-50. But as we progressed and got to know the COs, I would say more 90% directive, 10% personal. As they got to know everybody personally, their opinions changed. Like, you remember when we started doing Hopium Den, you had this officers that used to not like to be in the unit come just to watch us do Hopium Den.
Yes, I know. I remember. I remember being asked for encore. It was
yeah, exactly.
Yes, it definitely it definitely felt that, and especially because it was pretty clear some guards were requesting to be in our unit just because they could get the overtime and they knew it was not going to be a hostile environment.
Yeah, they were falling asleep, bro. Where other units, they would have got stabbed for doing that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? In our unit, they were so relaxed. Even though we're supposed to be the most dangerous thing in America, they're literally falling asleep and trusting us to just walk around and do our thing and not bother them. Matter of fact, we were waking them up when somebody was coming. Literally, when we saw a sergeant or we saw a captain or we saw a lieutenant coming to the unit, what we do? Hey, yo, there's a lieutenant coming. And woke them up.
What what would you say outside of the COs, in terms of this system and how it responded to our concerns, our issues? Could you describe what the grievance process was like, or
Oh my gosh.
were the U.S. Marshals responsive?
Man, look, let me tell you. The grievance process in DC DOC is almost non-existent. It's a waste of time. It is a huge waste of time. It is just for show. The grievance process does not help the inmates at all. Well, that was the way of it at first. It changed up a little bit, not too much. It changed up a little bit as we got deeper into it, our stay there. But and as far as the marshals go, the marshals just came in to basically, get us to calm down and give us some nice lies. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to fix this. And they didn't do anything. The marshals did not help at all. They came in to tell a lie, to show some brass, like, yeah, we're here. We got you guys. And then they didn't do nothing. So, yeah, it was really, for the most part, a couple marshals you could tell had our backs. Like, they supported us. They were all right, but they couldn't voice it. You could just tell in their tone, the way that they spoke. You know what I'm saying? And some of them even said, like, you guys, this is unfair. You guys shouldn't even be here in the first place. You know what I'm saying? But for the majority, you could tell they just didn't care. They're like, just shut up. Yeah, whatever. We hear you. Just shut up. That's how I felt. I don't know. How'd you feel?
I felt essentially the same. It seemed as though, well, first off, I do agree that the grievance process was inherently broken, so much so that in the 4-step process, I believe they actually got rid of the 4th step, so it could never even be completed. But when the marshals showed up, they would write a few things down, disappear, and that was the end of it. And it's funny because I and some others, I believe we FOIA'd a collection of the grievances that were issued back in 2021, and it's just laughable the way that they would respond to grievances. They wouldn't address the primary concern, or they would essentially blame the victim. If you were abused by a guard who covered up their name tag so you couldn't report them, and then you wrote that in your grievance, they would respond, well, all guards wear name tags and identify themselves. It was like, well, that's an interesting response to what I said. I want to shift gears somewhat to the legal, I suppose, the conclusion to your case, because I think that being out now, you've had time to reflect on everything, and I think it's important for all of us who've been through this process to describe really what the experience was like as a political prisoner or hostage, whatever we wanted to go by. But really, the legal process is burdensome, really, to everyone. But everyone experiences their own burdens. So, what led to your decision to resolve your case the way you did? I know you ended up taking a plea deal. I'd like to know, what were the burdens in terms of how you made your decision? Did you feel you had adequate representation? Did you feel that you got to see your evidence? Did you feel you were compelled to make the choices you made? Really, take us through the burdens you endured as a defendant, sans the jail itself.
Well, see, they gave me this public defender for a misdemeanor case. This is what blew my mind. I told them when I first got there, like, what's the charges? They said it's misdemeanors. I said, okay, I'll plead guilty to them right now. I don't want to be here, right? When I first got there, and I didn't even get to talk to my lawyer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just told the lawyer over the phone, like, look, I'll plead guilty. Just let me get up out of here. I want to go to prison because I just want to get my time started so I can do programs and get home, because I knew I qualified for the First Step Act. She said, well, unfortunately, the courts are down right now. They're not taking anybody's pleas, or they're not doing anything. It's COVID. I'm like, okay. So I got to sit. So then, after talking with people and then looking at the charges, I'm like, you know what? Forget this. I'm not going to plead guilty because I didn't do what they said I did. I did not violently enter the Capitol, and I did not disturb Congress while in session because it came out that Congress had already left. Congress was already out of there by the time I was there. So this is BS. I said, I'm not pleading guilty to it. And the lawyer tried to make the case, well, what changed? Like, why are you feeling differently now? I said, because I'm not guilty of it. At first, I just wanted to go, but I got to know all of you guys in there, and I seen the good that it was. And then, you remember when the officer told me, like, look, if you weren't here right now, they would be getting a whole lot different treatment if it wasn't for you being here. Because I'll tell you right now, they wouldn't be getting no kind of love. You know what I'm saying? Mm. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't just leave. So I built a connection with all of you guys, and I'm like, I can't just leave my brothers here to suffer. So I said, forget it. I'm not pleading guilty. And I didn't for a while. And they wouldn't accept a guilty plea, or that they wouldn't give me a plea deal. They switched it. They're like, no, we're not even offering him a plea deal since he wants to play these games. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I'm doing 48 months anyway. Regardless, it doesn't matter. So I don't care. Whatever you guys are going to do, I got a little snarky, and so my lawyer was getting frustrated, and she just hated Trump. Every time I had a meeting with her, she was just talking crazy about Trump, and how she couldn't believe that I was there with all those white supremacists, and you could see the bias that she had. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, whatever. It doesn't even matter to me. I don't care. I don't even understand why we're having these meetings, about any of this. So months into it, or over a year into it, she comes to me and is like, they're offering a plea of picketing and parading. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I might want to just take it to trial. I'm just being difficult. I'm like, I might just take it to trial because, why not? Why not take it to trial? What's going to happen? What's the worst? They're going to give me an extra year and whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's going to just get consumed by the time I got already. So I just really didn't care. And she was like, well, just really think on it because they're pressing. I said, no, now they're pressing you. But when I was trying to get up out of here and I was trying to tell them I'll take a plea or I would plead guilty to the charges that I do have, they didn't want to hear nothing. It was like they wanted us to sit there and suffer because a lot of people didn't get to go to court. A lot of people didn't get to take a plea. They did not recognize my right to a speedy trial. That's what I tried to invoke. I said, I want to invoke my right to speedy trial. She said, we can't because of COVID restrictions, so it's not going to matter. This takes precedence over your rights. And I'm like, what? So that was the thing. So, yeah, so what led me to take the plea deal, first off, number one, it was fair. Picketing and parading was what I did, and I'm guilty of that, and I'll accept that. But more importantly, I started getting frustrated with the way that the pod became because we had a lot of people inside of our pod that was causing chaos, man. That started to not be so. It wasn't about the camaraderie anymore. The brotherhood was falling apart because people had their own agendas, and it came to light later on. People started changing who they really were. Where you thought this person was this, and then they ended up being something completely different. And then there was hit pieces being done on people. You had a hit piece done on you. People just doing the most, and then they started lying. People started lying about conditions that was going on inside of there, and it was pissing me off because I'm like, there's no reason to lie. Conditions are bad enough to where you don't have to lie or make anything up. But when I started seeing people making things up, and then all these stories coming out, and I'm watching on the news, and then I'm feeling guilty because I'm like, I'm not calling it out. Can't call it out while you're in there because then the pod's gonna turn on you, and it's just like you got to just sit back and just let these people do what they do, So I just got tired of it. So I took the plea and I got up out of there.
So when you took your plea, of course, obviously the next destination was going to be the Bureau of Prisons. How long? Again, you're in D.C. over misdemeanor charges. They're essentially front loading a lot of your sentence. How much time until you finally get moved upon your plea? How much time until you get moved to the Bureau of Prisons? And then, really, this might sound stupid, but I'm personally of the opinion that prison was better than jail.
100%.
Yeah. Tell if you don't mind. Go through that. About the transition from jail to prison, and then eventually from prison to freedom.
So when I left D.C., it was probably a couple months. I don't remember exactly how much time passed between me getting my sentence, which was they gave me 2 months, bro. I sat in D.C. DOC for a year and a half for a 2-month sentence on a misdemeanor as a convicted felon, okay? And, yeah, so getting out of there, they put me to I went back to Oklahoma, except I wasn't in Cimarron. Where'd they ship me to? Oklahoma City. I went to Oklahoma City. And this is a crazy part. People don't know this, right? So I'm a gang dropout. I dropped out of my gang. Remember I was telling you guys about that when we were in D.C. I'm like, yo, I just want to get out of here because I'm going to a prison that's full of gang dropouts and people that don't want to be a part of gangs anymore, just trying to get their life together and do right when they get out, right?
Mm.
So I'm thinking I'm going to go to the gang dropout program. And they don't send me. Okay, so this whole time I'm on all active yards, bro. And I didn't realize this. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm around people that are just like me the whole time. All right? So even when they shipped me to Cimarron, they put me, I was in active units. I did not know that. I had no idea. I just thought, okay, man, this is just what it is, I guess. So I'm in all these little active units and active situations, and then I get to prison after I go to Oklahoma City. And when I get to prison, they sent me to Lexington. I was in a low, Lexington, Kentucky, and it was like I went to Hogwarts. I was where Harry Potter lived, bro. It was amazing. So I'm thinking that this is the gang dropout. This got to be the gang dropout thing. And it was great. I met a lot of good people inside of there. I got to do religious services. I would go to church, and then I would hang out with the Moors. Because, you know, my uncle's a grand sheik in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And, you know, I adopt some of their philosophies as far as, like, to make my life better, to the way that I live, the way I deal with people. And it's just always a good time. And it felt more home being around them type of brothers. So, because they're positive, right? So I was hanging with them and doing my thing there. And I was in the library, and I was just living my life, you know, just getting home. And I was able to use the phone, and I was able to just hang out, play dominoes all night if I wanted to. There was no locked doors in there, bro. Like, I could leave out of my cell at any given time, and I'll be sitting there watching TV or, like I say, playing cards or playing dominoes. And it was great. So about a month and a half, maybe 2 months into me being there, the CO comes to me, the gang unit leader, and he goes, yo, you got to pack your stuff out, man. And by the way, they rolled the red carpet out for me in Lexington. Like, they treated me great because they knew I was a J6 and they knew I was coming. My nickname throughout the prison system is J6. That's what they call me, J6. And they thought I was like this celebrity when I got there. And not just the COs, but the inmates. They all loved me. I was cool with every single person that I came in contact with. I was cool with the GDs. I was cool with the BDs. I was cool with the Kings. I was cool with everybody. And nobody looked at me as a gangbanger. They all looked at me as January 6th. They didn't even think about the conspiracy. It was all about January 6th, which was amazing. And I was a uniter inside of there. So I was still kind of like preaching my togetherness like how I would do in the world to them and talking to them about law and talking to them about the Constitution and America and politics and all types of stuff. People had me get on their phones to say hi to their family, bro. Like, all different ethnicities. It was really cool. So when I get moved, the CO tells me, he's like, hey, man, we got to pack you out. You're going to Lewisburg. I'm like, Lewisburg? What's in Lewisburg? They say, oh, well, you're going to the gang dropout program. I said, the gang dropout? I thought this was the gang dropout program. He goes, no, bro, you're on an active yard right now. I'm like, really? He was like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. I go, well, all right, well, in my mind, I'm like, this is going to be way better, you know? It's got to be better. It's got to be better than this, right? So I get on the plane to go to Lewisburg. Bro, they throw me back in solitary confinement. I'm in solitary confinement in Lewisburg. And I'm like, what is going on? Why am I here? And this is a maximum security at the time. They were switching it to a medium, but it was still max security. It's a big old wall. I'm like, I felt like I was in the movie Blood In, Blood Out. You know what I mean? When you got that San Quentin prison with the big old wall around it, that's what it was like in Lewisburg. So I'm in there, and there's a whole bunch of dudes that I'm thinking, okay, these are gang dropouts. They want to get their life better. Bro, completely wrong. I was completely wrong, bro. It was dudes that got kicked off their yard. They got beat up, or they got stabbed, or they got found sleeping with a dude, or whatever it was. So I'm like, what is going on? Where am I? I'm walking past the cells, and there's, you know, a transgender person right there with boobs out. I'm like, whoa. I seen a dude with a beard as thick as mine wearing a thong. I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy. Dudes that done stole stuff from people that are drug addicts, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. So I'm in solitary confinement. I look out the window, and I see Kelly Meggs. I see Robert Morris. I see all these people. I'm yelling out the window. They're like, yo, Cash, is that you? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? So I'm talking to the brothers, and in my mind, I told myself, well, maybe God just, wanted me to come back through this way. Maybe I had to come through here so I could see these brothers, see what's going on. And I did. I got to send out some messages. They sent out some messages for me. And yeah, I stayed there for like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months in solitary confinement. And then got shipped out from there to my prison in Tucson. Tucson is a medium. I was at a low. Okay, they upped my thing to a medium. I'm at a medium security prison in the desert, and it's hot, bro. I'm talking about when the devil wants to go on vacation to cool down from Arizona, he goes to hell to cool down, bro. It is so hot out there. And I get into this whole different system, and it's like, okay, this is supposed to be a gang dropout yard, but everybody in here wants to act like gangsters. So then I had to turn back on my little switch of, how I would perceive, like, a person knows don't try me. You know what I'm saying? Just leave me alone. I'm just here to do my time. I ran into some people that I knew from back home, which was good. And I got to talk with them and hang out with them. And then I just spent most of my time in the gym and reading. I was in the gym, the library, and reading. That's all I did. They had free weights there, which was good, just like how on the other yard that I was at. And I stayed to myself, minus my circle. I had a small circle of dudes that I really, I kicked the witness side of there that was on the same time as me, that was trying to just get their life together, get their sentence done, and go home without incident. Derek Chauvin was there. I was there when Derek Chauvin got stabbed. It was a whole bunch. It was just a whole bunch of stuff. And then I stayed there for a while until I came home. And then when I came home to the halfway house, they put me right back in Chicago. I was over there in Humboldt Park at the halfway house, and it was basically like I got my freedom back, It was around a whole bunch of dudes that some of them were still on that kind of time. They was on gang time, and, they still my bros, though. We still kicked it and talked. But overall, man, it felt good to be free. And again, I stayed pretty much to myself. I kicked it with a couple dudes inside the halfway house, but I got up out of there. I was there for about a month, not even maybe. And then I came home. And coming home, I've been rebuilding, bro. I'm trying to rebuild everything and keep my walk right with God, bro. That's been the most important thing to me, is just being a family man and keeping myself right with God, and then trying to rebuild, And it's been an adjustment because things didn't go like, I was in a relationship while I was locked up with the person that I was with before I got, locked up, and that didn't work out when I came home. It was crazy because I couldn't even go back home to my house. Like the distance had grew, and things had happened, or whatever happened. I don't really want to get into, but she didn't want me to come back to the house. She was like, no, I don't want you to stay here. But she wanted us to be together, but me just not stay there. So in my mind, that's a red flag. So I'm like, something's going on. I just wanted to be around my daughter. I want to see my baby. And it didn't work out, so I had to go move that. I moved in with my stepdad. First time I had lived with my parents again since I was 17 years old. And I stayed there for about a month and a half, and then I got my own place. I got back doing my content and working as far as like pushing my merch and doing the Freedom Box info, pushing American-made products, and that's how I've been earning a living. And some contracts with social media. And that I've been surviving. I was able to get this nice house that I live in and take care of my kids.
Well, that's a great thing. Kash, you're, you could be called a former political prisoner, but really you're a father. You're recently engaged, from what I hear. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And, more than any label, you're a man, you're an American, and I'm glad to know that you were able to get through the gulag, you were able to get through prison, and I'm happy to say that you're a free man, and I'm happy to say even more that even if you couldn't pick up exactly where you left off, you're going to end up in a better place than where you were before all of this bullshit started.
Amen, brother. I want to say something for you too, bro. And you, just so everybody knows who's listening to this, he didn't ask me to say this, but I got to say it. I do it every single time I do a live, and I talk about Tim. Real quick, man, when I first met Tim, all right, I didn't know him at all. Didn't hear about anything about him on the news. I didn't know anything about Tim. We was all right. We was cool. As cool as we were all skeptical of each other at first, right? And then you had rumors flying around. This person's a Fed. That person's a Fed. So it created like a little thought inside of people's heads about people. But more importantly, when I did start to talk to Tim, people came up to me and was like, "Bro, he's a white supremacist." And it was people that was J6ers. They're like, "Yeah, he was dressed up as Hitler, or he was whatever. He's a racist. He doesn't like you." Da 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 da. And I kind of bought into it for a second. And then I went and asked Tim. I went right up to him. I said, "Hey, Tim, I got to ask you a question." I said, "Bro, you racist? Do you not like me because of the color of my skin?" You remember that?
I do.
Yeah. And he said, "God, no, I'm not a racist, bro." he said, "God, no, I'm not a racist. I'm part Puerto Rican." And I said, "Okay," because this is being said. He goes, "Yeah, people, they say a lot of things, man, and we started talking. And me and him had, I would say, some of the greatest conversations that I've had with people inside of DC DOC. Some of the greatest conversations that I had was with Tim. He's an intellectual. And I got to know him and know his life and what he thought and the kind of literature that he reads. He actually passed along some books to me, one of which I still have here. And I grew to look at Tim as my brother. All right? And Tim, I apologize for even thinking that you could be what the media and what them few people, not a lot, it was just maybe two people said, I'm not going to say their names, said about you while we was locked up. Sorry that I even believed that for a second, bro. I'm really glad to know you, brother. I'm really proud of you for all that you're doing. And I'm really happy to see you free and being you, bro. You're a really good dude, and you got a very sharp mind, man, and I see a lot of good things for you in your future, my brother. And thank you for this interview, bro. Thank you for your friendship more than all.
Well, I thank you for saying all that, and this isn't the first time you've stuck your neck out to defend my character. And while I try to do these, I want to do these interviews and remain as impartial as possible, I have to return friendly fire here by saying that you were definitely one of the more intellectual members of the Patriot Pod. I remember having very good conversations with you, deep conversations. It wasn't always easy to come across those. And there wasn't a day where I didn't see you reading in your cell as well. And, I know that there may have been people trying to stir shit to cause chaos, but at the end of the day, I don't think that they succeeded in what they were trying to achieve, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that those whose hearts were pure, those who were not there with corrupt intent, I'm glad that they're the ones who will. I suppose you could say, they're the ones who will inherit the earth, not the ones who will falter. And with that, Kash, I would like to give you the floor to speak open-endedly about anything we might have passed over or any other details you think that the public should know, whether about January 6th, about your detention, or even just about yourself. Take it away.
Well, I just want to say to everybody, man, there's a lot of things, a lot of thoughts get passed around when it comes to people that are incarcerated. I used to be a person that passed around those kind of thoughts. I was really, really hard on people that went through the system, and I really lacked a heart for it, really. And now I have a different opinion, that being somebody that went through it and seen these things firsthand and met a lot of people, even people that had like murder charges that's locked up for life, man, and seeing how much they've changed inside of there, or the person that they are is like somebody that you're just in awe of, because their mind is so sharp and they have this regret or this care, like to want to be better and put something good out into the world that they'll never get to be a part of again. There's people that are locked up for life. But they go through a lot of abuses inside of these places, man, even though they're already paying for their crimes. And that's what I want everybody to remember. When we talk about any person that's locked up for whatever crime that they've committed, right? They're already locked up. And that's justice. That's what America's about, man. We're about justice, right? And freedom and equality and all of these things. But we have to raise our voices up for a lot of these places, man, or people in these places that are being mistreated just because they can be. And on top of it, you have COs that are bringing drugs, that are bringing knives. That there's been facilities that have had guns found inside. How do you think they got a gun inside? And it doesn't get talked about. You don't hear about any of this stuff in the mainstream media. People shouldn't be treated inhumanely when they're serving out a sentence that they've been convicted of, man. They should have human rights. They should have a place of safety where they shouldn't have to worry about any dangers outside of what comes with prison. You know, a CO is supposed to be there to protect and to make sure that the inmate doesn't leave and make sure that their life is okay, right? And they don't do that. A lot of them. Not all of them. A lot of them do not do that. So I just want to bring a little awareness to that, man, for everybody out there that may listen to this. You got to remember the prisoners, man, that are locked away. It says that in the book of Hebrews, man, in the Bible, chapter 13. Remember the prisoners. You know, people, they make mistakes, true enough. They shouldn't have to pay for those mistakes for the rest of their life outside of paying with the rest of their life of being incarcerated. So that's one thing. And then the next thing, not everything you hear on the media is true. They try to paint a lot of us out to be these horrible people, and we're not. We're just people. We're just Americans that believe, you know, and we believed in certain things, and we stood on it by going to protest. It doesn't make us any less of an American or any worse of a person than anybody else in the world, you know. And in my mind, it makes us more of an American for standing on for what we believed in, for the people that went there and stood and protested the right way and defended people, even the ones that you guys say got violent charges, they don't deserve a pardon. No, a lot of them people that got violent charges were doing the violence in defense of another person, and I got to shout that out, you know. So don't be too quick to judge a person based off of their charges. Don't be too quick to judge somebody because they've been incarcerated. And then lastly, if you guys could, please go give me a follow over on my YouTube, and it's my name, Kash, Kash Kelly, #1 with the number 1. And Kash Kelly everywhere else on all social media sites, man. I would greatly appreciate it. I make content geared towards politics. I make funny videos. I make just content. I do daily devotionals. I share my thoughts, kind of a vlog style sometimes. But if you guys could go and support that, this is how I pay my bills, just by you watching it and liking it. So I would greatly appreciate it. And Tim, I really appreciate you, my brother. Shout out to you. Shout out to Cynthia Hughes. I got to shout that out too, for everything that she has done. When I was locked up, she helped take care of my family. She sent money for Christmas. She sent letters out. She was petitioning for us. She was at the events talking on behalf of us while we were incarcerated, trying to get the word out. So I know people got some things to say because of what was said from people in prison. But let me tell y'all, as a black January 6er, right, the black guy of the pod, Cynthia Hughes went out of her way for my family more than once. So shout out to her, shout out to Julie Kelly, shout out to Mama Dawn and Big Papa Dan, and shout out to all the other organizations out there that are doing good for the January 6ers, man, that are taking care of the family or taking on some sort of burden off of the family while their loved ones away. So yeah, that's about it.
Whatever you have done for the least among you, you have done for me. Kash, I'm thankful for your friendship. Thank you for your voice and for using it to help those who have no one to speak on their behalf. And I thank you for being with us. You know, the wheels of justice move slow, but the wheels of oppression always come to a halt. Thank you very much for being with me, Kash. Thank you.
Hey, man, I'm always here, my brother. You have a good day. God bless you, bro.
And the same to you. God bless, man.
All right. Peace.